Napoleon Hill said that 98% of people never actually achieve their goals. Only 2% do. So what's the difference between someone who does and someone who doesn't? Most of us who are creating anything, if you're an athlete or if you're anyone trying to pursue something great, we always have this dream or this goal or the vision, the thing we want to get. And at first it's so exciting, but then you start the pursuit, and as soon as you do, you get hit. The motivation and the drive wears off.
There is this voice in our head that tells us, you're no good, you can't do this. Who are you to think of whatever project that you have in your mind?
The phrase that I've been using lately for this for myself is called the resistance. You know, a lot of times you hear resistance, you think about in Star Wars, like the resistance of the good guys, but in this situation, resistance is bad.
It's the resistance.
I got the word resistance actually from this book called The War of Art by Steven Pressfield, which is an amazing book. You can read the whole thing in like 2 hours. He says, the resistance is a negative force in the world that keeps us from fulfilling our dreams. It's not the writing part that's hard. It's the sitting down to write. What keeps us from sitting down is resistance. And when I first heard that, I started thinking about when have I felt the resistance? And recently we had our big, huge funnel hacking live event. We had 5,000 entrepreneurs from around the world come to this thing. And you think it's just we're all so excited. We show up and it's just this big, huge party. But as we got closer and closer to the event, I had so much resistance.
It's Thursday morning. I've had 3 days work on slides, and so far I've gotten no slides done. Resistance is hitting hard. I'm fighting it. We're gonna make it.
I was tired, I had so much to do and I didn't know how I was gonna get it all done. My brain, as soon as you sit down behind a computer to start working, it's looking for any distraction to get away from the pain of actually doing the work.
If you decide you want to be in the creative arts, it's a war. And you're gonna have to fight this dragon every morning that you wake up. This dragon of self-sabotage and self-doubt.
I do not feel like filming this right now, but the resistance has got me. I'm in the truck. I can't sit next to my desk anymore. My 11 presentations, I have 0 of them done, and I have no idea how I'm gonna get done in time.
The question for me then, as I started thinking about this, is well, how does resistance actually work? Number one, I noticed, for me personally, resistance hits me with procrastination. It's what are all the other things I could do that are good that keeps me from doing the thing that's great? My phone lights up and I grab my phone and then I'm oh, put it down. And then check over here and I see this and oh, I'm hungry, I need, and just every little thing is trying to distract me from keeping on the path.
Resistance won today. Take a nap.
Number two is something that Steven Pressfield said. He calls this the shadow calling. He said all of us have this calling of the thing we want to do, and the shadow calling is something we're pursuing that's similar but not the same. For example, if you were supposed to be an entrepreneur, you're supposed to be starting a business, that's your actual calling. The shadow calling might be you go and you work for someone who's an entrepreneur. There's nothing wrong with those things, but there's no risk in the shadow calling. The actual calling, there's a risk. You write the book and it's good or it's bad, it fails or it doesn't. Whatever those things are, there's always a binary outcome. Either you win or you lose, you do it or you don't. Whereas with the shadow calling, there's no outcome, and so it keeps you safe, it keeps you protected, but you feel like you're actually doing the thing you're supposed to do. And then the third one I've noticed is that resistance tries to keep you from actual fulfillment and instead gives you pleasure. It tries to give you a cheaper form of the thing you're trying to pursue. Let's say you are trying to get in shape. The fulfilling thing, the thing that you're working towards, the thing that is actually gonna give you true happiness is hard, right? There's pain, there's distance, and instead it's how can I give you pleasure instead? Oh, eat this ice cream, eat this candy, do this thing instead. We see the same thing right now, what keeps so many people from progressing in their relationships and marriages and things like that. It's you can do the hard work to have a great marriage, or there's a cheaper version that gives you the pleasure without the work.
All right, it's midnight, I'm leaving the office right now. Got a lot done today. The resistance, fought hard, been getting a lot of slides done. Anyway, today was a pretty good day overall. Get some sleep and back at it in a couple hours.
Discipline is what takes you to that higher level.
That's right.
You can't wish your way there. You can't chant your way there. Yeah, you can't. The law of attraction is not going to get, it's bullshit.
Yeah.
The only way you get there is through hard work.
And so the last question then that I want to address in this video, then I want to get your thoughts as well, is how do we actually beat it then? How do we beat this resistance? And part of it's just becoming aware of it. For me, when I became aware of the resistance, I started tracking and writing down every time it happened. I was like, man, this is hitting me from every angle. Now that I know that it's happening, I can do things to try and protect myself. There's a study online called the triune brain where it talks about the things our brains are naturally programmed to do. And the resistance plays off of these things. It's like your brain's naturally programmed to do this, so it's going to try to push you down those paths, right? First one is our brains are programmed to naturally avoid pain. So it's always going to try to get us. When we're pursuing something, it's like, how can our brain avoid the actual pain of doing the work? Number two is our brains are programmed to seek pleasure. What's the fastest and easiest way for me to get pleasure? It's eating this thing, it's watching that video, it's doing this thing. What's the fastest path to pleasure? And then number three is our brains are programmed to help us to conserve energy, which is why a lot of us get lazy. We don't want to burn our calories. So our brain's trying to tell us, like, don't move, don't do anything, conserve energy at all costs. And then there's also a fourth one that one of my friends, Andy Grace, kind of threw in here, which is really powerful as well. And that's that our brain wants to always try to prove that itself is right. It's called confirmation bias. Now, to actually beat resistance, we have to go the opposite of the four things that our brain is programmed to do. Instead of avoiding pain, we have to move out of our comfort zone over and over and over again. Pursuing your dreams is not going to be simple. You have to go out of your comfort zone to be able to pursue it. Number two, instead of seeking pleasure, we have to delay our gratification. Instead of going for the easy thing where you get the reward without the work, you have to put in the work first before you ever actually earn the reward. And number three, our brains want us to conserve energy. Instead, we have to give massive action. We have to burn the calories, to do things. We have to go above and beyond to get the work done that we're not normally willing or able to do. And then number four is to be successful, we have to question everything. We have to question our beliefs, our thoughts, our ideas, instead of like trying to have this confirmation bias where we know we're always right. And that's how you grow and that's how you change. So that's the way you beat resistance. We're literally going against the things that our brain are pre-programmed to do. Only 2% of people are actually able to beat resistance consistently enough to achieve their goals and achieve their dreams. Every single time you sit down to work and the resistance hits you, you have to understand one thing. And I learned this from Viktor Frankl, one of my favorite authors of all time. He said that between the stimulus and the response, there is a space. In that space lies our power to choose our responses. In our responses lies our growth and our freedom. So every single time there's a stimulus, right? And the response, there's a delay in the middle. And most of us, though, we don't think about it. Wake up in the morning, you're laying in bed, alarm goes off, and you're like, I don't want to get out of bed. And then we go this pattern like, oh, I'm tired, I'm cold, and you fall back asleep. But there's always this gap, there's always this little space. And that space is when resistance hits us and we have a moment to say, I'm going to stop. And we take this pattern that we normally get stuck into and we can break the pattern and choose the thing that's going to move us towards our goal. All right, so now you understand what the resistance is. I'm guessing you probably identified some times when it's affected you, right? If so, I would love to know down below like what things you are using and doing to help protect yourself from resistance. I'm always looking for ideas for myself, and I'm sure everyone else on the channel would love to hear as well. The more ideas we come up together, the better we can all be successful as a community. And number two, if you're enjoying this video or the ones we're putting out, please come back. Every single week we're dropping new videos with things I think are gonna help you to achieve the things that you're trying to do in your life. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you as a subscriber and a member, and I'll see you guys on the next video.